They say silence can save you, but in my case, it destroyed everything first. The morning he left was cold, one of those damp English mornings where the fog sits heavy on the hedgerows and even the birds seem too tired to sing. I stood by the window of our old stone cottage, the kettle screaming behind me, and watched his car disappear into the gray mist. No goodbye, no glance in the mirror, just gone. For the first time in years, the house was quiet. But not peaceful, never peaceful. Silence for me had become a habit and a weapon. I used to believe in love, in the kind of promises that echo through churches and rainy mornings. When I married Daniel, I thought we were building something unbreakable. But cracks don't always appear overnight. Sometimes they whisper through the years like ghosts you choose to ignore. He started coming home later. First, it was work, then meetings, then nothing. No explanations, no warmth, just that look of exhaustion mixed with something colder, disappointment. And yet, I said nothing. Not because I was weak, because I knew words couldn't save what was already dying. People in the village would smile when they saw us. The perfect couple, they'd say. But behind closed doors, perfection felt like a performance. I played my role, the quiet wife who smiled, cooked, and pretended not to see the text messages lighting up his phone at midnight. Every silence I kept became a wall. And one day he stopped trying to climb it. Our two children, Emily and Thomas, grew up watching that silence. They mistook it for indifference. When Daniel left, they didn't ask why. They blamed me. "You never thought for him, Mom," Emily said once, her voice sharp, her teenage anger raw. "You just let everything fall apart." She didn't know that I fought every day, not with shouting or tears, but with endurance, with the quiet strength that holds families together even as they crumble. But silence, once again, betrayed me. To them, I wasn't strong, I was invisible. When Emily left for university, she stopped calling. Thomas followed soon after, chasing his father's shadow, all charm, no conscience. And me, I stayed. Because someone had to. It arrived on a Thursday. A plain white envelope slipped through the slot of my old oak door. No name, just my address scrawled in Daniel's handwriting. That same careless slant that once made my heart skip. Inside, one line. "You'll understand everything soon." No signature, no explanation, just that. I stood there staring at the paper as the kettle boiled behind me again. The same sound from the morning he left. That night, I couldn't sleep. The letter sat on my bedside table like a ghost. What was there to understand? That he had loved someone else? That my silence had pushed him away? Or that something darker was finally catching up to him? 3 days after the letter arrived, I heard a knock. It was late, far too late for visitors, the kind of hour when even the wind seems to whisper your name. I hesitated, heart pounding, before opening the door. A man stood there, early 40s, rain dripping from his coat, eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. "I'm Detective Harris," he said. "I'm afraid I have some news about your husband." The world seemed to still. Rain pattered against the doorway and the scent of wet earth filled the space between us. "He's been found, but not alive." The police said it was an accident. His car had gone off a narrow road near Devon, straight into the woods. But I knew Daniel. He drove those roads like the back of his hand. Something wasn't right. Detective Harris left a file on my kitchen table. Routine paperwork, he'd called it. But that night, as the clock struck 2, I found myself opening it. Inside were photos, reports, notes scribbled by the police. And at the bottom of the file, a photo that didn't make sense. A small wooden box lying beside the wrecked car, burnt on one side, but still intact. A box that looked hauntingly familiar. The same kind I had seen in our attic years ago. The one Daniel had forbidden me to open. He'd said it was from his late father. I never questioned it. But now, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The next morning, I climbed up to the attic. something I hadn't done in years. Dust clung to the beams and sunlight filtered through the small window like old memories trying to escape. And there it was, the box, still where it had always been. Except now, it looked different. The lid slightly shifted, as if someone had opened it recently. My hands trembled as I reached for it. It was heavier than I remembered. When I finally opened it, there was nothing inside, just a faint sense of smoke and an old photo, torn in half. In it, Daniel stood with another woman, her face half burnt by time. Behind them, a young boy. Not Thomas. That night, I called Emily. She didn't answer. I called again. Still nothing. I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the photo, the half-burnt smile of that woman frozen in time. Every piece of silence I had lived with now echoed with questions. Why had he lied? Who was that boy? And what was I supposed to understand now that he was gone? The kettle screamed again, that same sound, that same tone, and I felt something inside me snap. For the first time in years, I didn't want silence. I wanted truth, even if it tore apart everything left of me. The morning after, I took the photo to the police station. Detective Harris frowned as soon as he saw it. He went quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that feels like someone's hiding something. Finally, he spoke. Mrs. Whitmore, this woman, her name was Margaret Hale. She went missing 15 years ago. I froze. He slid a second photo toward me. Same woman, same child. Different background, a small cottage near Brighton. My hands trembled. So, Daniel. He nodded slowly. Yes, he was living a double life. The room tilted. The sound of the clock ticked louder, heavier, crueler. 15 years. 15 years of lies, hidden under the smile of a man I once trusted more than anyone. When I left the station, the sky had begun to snow, soft flakes falling on the quiet streets. I walked without direction, my shoes echoing on the wet pavement. Then, out of nowhere, a voice, small, hesitant, called behind me. Mrs. Whitmore? It was a boy, maybe 17. Brown hair, eyes too familiar. He handed me an envelope. My mom, Margaret, asked me to give you this if anything ever happened to my dad. My throat tightened. Your dad? He nodded. Daniel Whitmore. The world tilted again, a cruel twist of fate. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Inside the envelope, there was just one line, written in Daniel's handwriting. Forgive me. I couldn't protect both of you. I walked home through the snowstorm, the wind slashing across my face like punishment. Every step echoed with betrayal. Every breath burned with the truth. When I reached home, I went to the attic again. I sat on the same spot where the box had once been, and this time, I didn't cry. I looked around at the empty house, the house that had seen both love and lies. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't broken. Daniel's secrets, my children's distance, society's whispers, none of it could destroy me anymore. They had mistaken my quiet for weakness, but silence was the only thing that had ever kept me sane. That night, I wrote a letter. Not to Daniel, he didn't deserve that, but to Thomas and Emily. I wrote about the truth, about what silence can do to a person, how I'd stayed quiet not because I was weak, but because I had learned that sometimes words only feed cruelty, and silence protects your soul until you're ready to speak again. I ended it with one line. One day, you'll understand that your mother wasn't silent, she was surviving. Months passed. Spring returned to the countryside, and the roses I'd planted with my bare hands bloomed again, brighter than before. The house no longer felt haunted. It felt mine. One morning, as I stood by the window, sunlight streaming through the lace curtains, I whispered, not to Daniel, not to anyone, just to myself. My silence wasn't weakness. It was power, the kind he never understood. And with that, I smiled. Not the broken smile of a forgotten woman, but the calm, knowing smile of someone who had rebuilt herself from ashes. The wind outside carried the scent of fresh earth, the smell of freedom. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting to be heard. I had already spoken, in my own way.